Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We're getting ever closer to Vermont's March 4th Town Meeting Day, and happy to be talking Highgate issues on this show with Carrie Johnson, the interim town administrator for Highgate. Carrie, good to see you.
Good to be here.
And Shelley Laroche, the veteran town treasurer for Highgate.
Good morning.
Thanks for your time. Carrie, I guess as we talked off here, I guess the first thing to talk about is very sad for me, for reporters in general. I've been going to the Highgate town meeting literally for decades. And I guess I could show up at the, sports arena, but I'd see people voting. But again, the vote last year, I guess by 10 votes, I think 79-69 to go Australian ballot, all Australian ballot this year. So no traditional town meeting with discussion from the floor. It's all Australian ballot voting.
That's correct. This is the first year by choice anyway, because COVID did that for a little bit.
No, that's a good point. I forgot
That
about
Highgate
COVID.
is voting entirely by Australian ballot, so there is no actual floor meeting vote, discussion, changes to the budget at that time.
Yeah. We should note, though, as you probably were about to, for folks who happen to see this show quickly, again, we're taping the show later than we should be doing the show. I should be doing it, but on Wednesday, February 26th. But I guess some folks can access it YouTube pretty quickly. And for those who do, the public informational meeting is, Thursday night, tomorrow night, Thursday?
It is.
Feb 27?
7.
And
Yep.
what time's that?
6 o'clock, so it's from 6 to 9 at the school.
At the school.
Anticipating maybe there'd be a little more attendance than normal. So yeah, that's the time when we'd like to answer questions about the budget and the articles that they're voting on.
Right, and we'll get into the articles people are voting on. I guess one of them gets to that issue, and I guess there was talk maybe at last year's meeting when to have that public info meeting. And so it may be in the future, you might have it earlier. I guess that remains to be seen.
It's true. I don't know if Shelley can speak to
Shelley,
the conversation
yeah.
last year. Shelley's.
Remember that
can.
came up last year.
It was at the very end of our town meeting day. And it was voted to have it within 5 days of town meeting,
Right.
which, as you just mentioned, does not allow much time to get the information out to the public prior to vote day.
Yeah.
So we are trying to change it to match the state statute within 30 days of town meeting.
So we'll see what happens. So it might be earlier next year.
We're hoping.
And there's nothing on the ballot to go back to the traditional. That's not on the ballot. So
It's not on the ballot, and I heard quite a few people that supported Australian ballot, as you know.
Yeah.
And there's been studies done, but the participation in floor votes on town meeting day has been declining for some time and really doesn't represent the voters.
Again, from my reporting background, I love the traditional town meetings, but it's obvious you can certainly make the case for Australian ballot, which does routinely give you a better turnout anyway. Anyway, Carrie, so much for your retirement from St. Albans Town.
It's true.
You've
It's
got
true.
the record, and who knows, maybe you'll have it for record, but you've got the record at this point for the longest-serving St. Albans Town manager.
It's true.
Did you intend and you stepped down there a couple, 3 years ago, or am I way off?
No, it's close. I retired in the fall of 23.
Fall of 23?
Yeah, and I found I was looking for some part-time work. And as it turns out, there's always a little bit of transition in the state, so in administration. So being an interim works for me and helps the community while they look for their new person with a little less stress, hopefully, that they have somebody I feel like some days I'm playing whack-a-mole because there's a lot going on. But yes, I'm trying to leave the place better than I found it.
And with Highgate, it's part-time with three days a week? Is that
Correct.
what you're doing for Highgate?
3 days.
Interesting. But you ended up first in Morrisville. Was that your first job after St. Albans Town as an interim, I guess?
It was, yeah. I started a consulting business thinking I was going to
really?
consult with municipalities, but then the question quickly came to, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, well, I guess I could do that too. So yes, I worked in Morristown. Morrisville,
Morristown.
depends on who you ask, but they answer to both.
Interesting. But it was actually Morristown with
It was Morristown, and I was the town manager there. Morristown actually has a lot going on. They have a police department, fire department, ambulance service.
Were you dealing with Morrisville too, or was that a separate person dealing with Morrisville?
Well,
or no
Morristown
person?
and Morrisville you can compare that to St. Albans Town, and Morrisville, the village itself, is more or less a utility. They do water and light.
Morrisville being an incorporated village in the town
Correct.
of Morristown?
Yes.
Okay, kind of like Enosburg
Yep.
Falls. In the
Correct,
town of
that's true
Enosburg.
too. Yep.
Interesting. So that work, that's interesting. I think I told you.
I know.
I've never dealt with really, I know the Bijou's still downtown,
is.
but I've never dealt with that. But that was a decent job?
Absolutely, I loved it.
Yeah.
Stayed for, I don't know, 9 months, I guess it
Interesting.
was.
And Highgate came up after that, or was
It did. Now, a little bit. I mean, I didn't do much last fall. The summer was a little quiet, which I
Yeah.
did intentionally. And then this position opened up in October. So we're actively, the town of Highgate is working on filling the new administrator position with an executive search consultant. I can't remember what they actually called it, but
Oh, really?
they hired VLCT.
Vermont League of Cities and Towns?
Yep, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to help with that process, just to cast like a bigger net, because you just don't know where your next administrator will come from.
That's right. I think Dominic Cloud, correct me if I'm wrong, long ago, he's been with the city for, is it like 15 years or something?
Long
Didn't he
time.
come out of Vermont League of Cities and Towns?
He did, and actually he's taking the lead on this as
Oh, really?
supporting VLCT with that process.
Interesting. You're not applying. You have no interest in the
I am
permanent
not
job at
applying,
Highgate?
that's correct. No, I like the interim work when it's available and just working and helping municipalities, but I have no desire to work full-time.
Interesting. Well, it sure sounds like those jobs. If you want to keep doing that, I suspect there might be more of those jobs
There
down the
might be.
road.
That's right.
Interesting. Shelley, give us some background on yourself. I think the first time we've had you on the air here.
It is the first
Yeah,
time.
great to see you.
Yes,
Give us
thank
some
you.
background on yourself.
Background, born and raised Highgate, Vermont.
Yeah.
I got into the financial industry in 2000. I was at Merchants Bank, a loan officer for just about 10 years before moving on to do more of a human resource payroll administration and billing for the Abbey Group and their lunch service program,
really?
which they have over 100 accounts throughout Vermont, New Hampshire.
Boy, so they're really,
New York.
Abbey Group has turned into incredibly big business. So
was
do they keep getting bigger, in fact? You're not with them anymore.
I have not followed how many
Yeah.
accounts they've kept or added, so.
And
unsure.
and again, you've been town treasurer in
I've
Highgate
been-
since what, 2015?
Yep, 10 years.
Wow.
Town treasurer. I took over for Tom Racine and the delinquent tax collector as well. So
That's right.
I wear both hats.
Interesting. That's never sounded like a fun job. Is that job not too torturous? Or is
You
that,
don't make friends, no.
well, I bet. Sounds like zoning administrator is another job that's never struck me as probably a real fun job, but
It can be.
can be.
But I think the other thing that I've noticed in Highgate is Shelley has instituted a very compassionate and professional way to work with taxpayers who maybe were on the delinquent tax
Yeah.
list, but then maybe needed just a little help budgeting. So she's actually proactively been contacting taxpayers, and the delinquent tax rate has dropped dramatically.
Really?
Yes, it was on average of over $200,000
Really?
a year and consistently staying the uncollected balance. And by the end of our tax cycle, I usually have it down under $20,000.
Really? Wow, that sounds great. What do you do with those folks you're getting, just getting nowhere with? Do you eventually end up in court with those folks, or?
The first thing I implemented was tax sale every year. So the people that used to wait knew I was serious and forced their hand at making progress
Yeah.
annually, not waiting until it got so large they couldn't catch up.
Wow.
So that was number one. And my other thing is, as Carrie just mentioned, the people that need to be on a payment plan, getting them on a payment plan.
Yeah.
So they're paying ahead. Once they're caught up, they're paying for the future tax bill.
Interesting.
Which
Is
has
that
helped
at
them.
your discretion? Can any town do that, or some towns say you owe us 10,000, you have to pay every cent of that? Is there always discretion, or?
I think a tax collector would be foolish to not accept a payment ahead of time.
Really? Yeah. Interesting. So is your job, is that a full-time job for you as,
Tax collecting is a
with-
piece of
okay.
my job as a whole. So
The
I
town
would say maybe
treasurer is
20% of my time is
Okay.
tax
So
collecting.
that's a full-time job,
Yes.
town
Yes.
treasurer. And again, going back to Tom Racine, your predecessor, he's the one who kind of split them up, or?
He was the person that initiated the split roles of clerk and treasurer. He was the last
Interesting.
person that held both titles with
Interesting.
assistants below him.
Right. And I should note, you're up for re-election with no opposition.
No opposition.
And your term, and Wendy Dusablon, the town clerk, has purposely, I guess, a different year that she's up.
Well, we did
the clerk-
not. We did
No?
not. In fact, just 3 years ago, our main lister, Amy Reynolds, Wendy Dusablon, the town clerk, and
Yeah.
myself, town treasurer,
Yeah.
were all on the ballot at the same time.
Huh.
So we proactively asked the select board to stagger our terms so the office would not be completely empty or new turnover all at once.
Yeah, it sounds like that was probably a smart move.
Right. So Wendy's, this is her 1 year of a
Yeah.
4-year term, and she'll be on the ballot next year,
Okay.
and then we will stay our 3-year terms, but different cycle.
Okay. We're about to get into town meeting stuff. So would you say the town is a town treasurer? Is the town of Highgate in pretty decent physical shape at this point?
I think we have done our darndest to keep it in its best shape
Yeah.
and also keep the tax rate as low as possible.
Yeah. So again, pretty busy town meeting coming up, Carrie.
It is.
There are a lot of issues. I guess we should start with, boy, there are 4 seats on the select board up. Again, and the chair at this point is,
Vern?
I'm sorry, Vern Brodsky, who's right in front of me here. In fact, is Vern not running? He's not in front of me.
No, he's not on the ballot.
Sorry.
Yeah,
this year.
no, that's
Confused me.
fine, I get
That's what I
it.
thought.
I don't know all their terms, but I know Vern is not up this year.
Okay. But no, at least no contested races except for, I happened to mention off air, ran into Richard Noel, former selectman, at the legislative breakfast in Swanton Monday morning, and he said he has launched a write-in campaign. I guess he's challenging Chad Carr, who's on the ballot for, a 3-year term. Richard Flint, who's an incumbent, running for a 2-year term. Mary Souza, who's a select board member, running for a 2-year term. And Benjamin Lowell running for a 3-year term. So no contested races aside from the, I guess, Richard Noel write-in bid.
The
Anyway,
Richard Noel,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah, no, it's
Richard.
fine.
Richard Noel and Chad Carr, they should be running for a 1-year term. It is ending somebody else's.
Oh, is that, I'm sorry, thank you for
You're
correcting me. Right, for a
It's
term of 1
finishing.
year remaining on a 3-year term. Thank
Yes.
you.
Right.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Feel free to correct me, you're the guys who knows what's going on. Anyway, so pretty busy. Where do you want to start with articles? You've been dealing with this for months now, Carrie?
We have, I mean, Shelley
And
actually
Shelley.
guides the budget process in Highgate, and
Yeah.
she's been doing a fabulous job meeting with departments, and then the select board and planning commission, who work really hard in Highgate to help with their capital improvement plans. So I guess you could start at the beginning. I don't remember what their orders are.
You want that? You want
Sure,
that?
that'd be great, because I don't vote in Highgate, obviously. So the first article has to do with the date of property taxes. We don't believe that will be contested,
Yeah.
to be October 30 of
And I
each
guess
year.
my question was,
Yeah.
if there's a no vote on that, what happens? I saw that on the Swanton ballot, I guess, just a question being, can we collect taxes on certain dates or whatever? Say that was voted down, then what happens?
Wendy and I would be back at the polls
Yeah, we'd
for a
have,
very foolish question.
right. You have to just set a date, so I guess this is asking people for
Okay,
input
that
at this
sounds
point.
like that.
But-
I'm sure that'll presumably go through.
Right, I believe it's pretty rarely contested, but.
Okay. Next article is of interest. In fact,
It
talking to
is.
your uncle about that just yesterday. The ATV article.
Right, so we're asking taxpayers, someone came forward with a petition asking if I'll read it because it's a little confusing,
Yeah.
but shall the voters of the town of Highgate advise the select board to allow the legal use of ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, on all town roads? And then it goes on to explain that they must be registered, have insurance, and, participate in the VASA trails, but.
And again, this
the
came
vast
up with
trails.
a resident or two petitioning
did.
the board and getting enough
Right.
petitions, I guess.
So it's on the
signatures.
ballot, and I think it's going to be one of the 3 hotly debated articles at our informational
I
meeting.
bet, yes, I know some people going to that meeting.
There's I mean, the select board hasn't specifically endorsed this. This was a petitioned article, so it'll be interesting to see how people vote.
Has the
on it.
select board taken a position on that article?
They have not.
They have not.
I know for myself, I guess if I was a voter, I'd be a little concerned at the liability on all town roads.
Yeah.
I don't know if the select board, if given authority to move forward, if they would actually authorize all of them or just a few key roads.
Seems like I remember that being an issue a few years ago in Highgate when St. Albans Police Department was still covering the town. Seems like I remember being concerned about ATVs maybe going down the rail trail, or has that been an issue at times, Shelley?
The rail trail is still an issue with
Really?
the ATVs.
Wow, just what you need when you're out on the nice walk or ski on the rail trail. Huh?
Right.
Huh.
And I think the St. Albans City Police Department did a good job about getting it under control, better than it was prior to them being in our town enforcing.
Huh.
We hope it continues. I think the issue with Swanton Town having all of their roads open
Oh,
and
is that-
Franklin Town having all of their roads
Oh,
open
really? Interesting.
with us in the middle
Gotcha.
is where this article might have stemmed from.
Interesting. So Swanton Town and Franklin do have roads open for ATVs.
Yes.
Interesting. Have you got any feel for the rest of the state? Is that typical of smaller? Probably not, huh?
I don't have any idea actually at this point.
It's always sounded like New Hampshire was a much easier place for like folks who are into ATVs and stuff.
I've heard
Anyway,
that as
yeah.
well.
Anyway, well, that sounds
my
like
pastime.
sounds like that'll get some
Right,
discussion. huh?
exactly. So then the other one, Article 4, talks about, that's the whole town meeting day informational meeting within 30 days.
Right.
So the law did change fairly recently. It used to be you'd have to have that info meeting if you're voting by Australian ballot
Yeah.
within 10 days of the
Really,
election.
within 10 days.
It just doesn't, from a practical standpoint, it doesn't
Sure.
give the town enough time to have that info meeting, to have the voters come and ask questions, and then, make an informed decision before they vote, because a lot of people do start voting pretty early.
I was going to say, obviously,
Yeah.
X number of people have already voted now. How
Right.
many people have already voted, roughly?
I
do you know?
believe Wendy said yesterday she sent out just under 100 absentees,
Yeah.
and she's received about half of those back.
Interesting. Highgate's never sent out ballots in the mail, I assume? You've never done that, or have you done that?
We
Did you
have-
have to, I guess maybe you had to do that for,
Correct.
With one of the
During the
elections?
COVID
Okay.
era, as
Okay.
well as there was one other special vote that the select board chose to send
Yeah.
a ballot to every voter.
but they don't see that, I guess they don't see that as being a good idea to do routinely or something.
Not everybody wants a ballot mailed
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah.
as well as postage is quite costly. So
Yeah.
unless it's requested, we do
Right.
not.
So the timing of the next year's public info meeting, that'll be getting some attention.
Right, give it a little more latitude. I don't know that it'll be super controversial, but
Yeah.
number 5 is a non-binding advisory opinion vote asking taxpayers if they would support the purchase of a 5 Gore Road, which is formerly the Pause for Thought building. The select board actually is looking, and the question actually says, as an option for the future home of the Highgate Library and Community Center. So that one, we believe, will get a decent amount of attention. The select board was just hoping to keep that door open. That property is up for sale. The owners have closed the business and want to sell the property. And it sits in the village core neighborhood area that is now a designated, like what they used to call just village centers. So it's sitting in front of what Cathedral Square where their building would be.
The senior housing
The
project.
senior housing
proposed.
project being proposed for Highgate. So this article, if passed, the select board would like the opportunity to negotiate an option to purchase that property while separately trying to figure out if that's the best option for the Highgate Community Library and Community Center. I don't know. There's a lot of
In fact, I
debate
didn't.
going on about
In
this.
fact, I guess I noticed some of that debate. I did see the Messenger story, which I have in front of me. Highgate's library trustees have issues with the select board about that issue. So I guess they're not happy with that as even a potential site for what they hope will be a new library community center. I guess Anyway.
That's an understatement. That's a good point. So, I mean, officially, my statement earlier is what the select board was hoping for, but I
Yeah.
think there's been a communication breakdown, and the trustees, to my knowledge, haven't approached myself or any select board member to ask what the next steps are. I mean, the select board did appoint a library steering committee this fall, and as you know, and people in the area, to get a public project approved in a municipality, it's often a great idea to have a steering committee look at options for that building. And that was the hope for that library steering committee, to look at the possibility, just to see what options would be best for Highgate. Is it a brand-new library?
Yeah.
Or 2, is it this pause for thought building? Or 3, is it just stay where you are because there's not as much demand? I don't know the answer to that. That was the hope for that library steering committee, but there seems to be some confusion within the library trustees about the information that's already been researched and paid for with a few grants versus maybe this new building could be a possibility.
That's right. But again, this is even if this is approved, this is an option. This is not a
It's
done-
an option, although, I mean, practically speaking, if this article went down and resoundingly with a no, we don't support it,
Yeah.
the select board isn't going to ignore that and then start negotiations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something that they have the palate for, nor would I recommend they do that either. So
Interesting.
it could be an option. I felt like it was, it's kind of like if there was a house in the middle of Taylor Park in St. Albans and
Yeah.
it came up for option, the city would be like, well, I would like to maybe have that removed
Yeah.
or use it.
Yeah.
But having someone put apartments there might not be the best if that's your village center.
Yeah.
We'll see what taxpayers think and what kind of questions come up at our informational
Well,
meeting.
it sounds like, as a reporter forever around here, especially going back about 20 years, all the public info meetings I went to that I was, nobody showed up. It sounds like they'll actually might get a pretty good crowd at the attendance meeting on Thursday night.
Well, which is why we are having an informational meeting on Thursday, and I don't know who will see this before then, but it's at
Yeah.
the school.
At the school.
Not in our boardroom, which is great.
Good, right.
But it holds maybe 50 people. If we
Right.
get more than that, we want people comfortable and
So it's at the school, again, 6 o'clock start?
6 o'clock.
Okay, and again, voting, which you may have already mentioned, again, Tuesday, March 4th, at the Highgate Sports Arena, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Correct.
Is that, well, of course, I was going to say, is that a new place for voting, obviously, because the traditional meetings were always at the elementary school,
Prior to COVID, we were always voting in the gym.
in the gym.
Since COVID, they really didn't want the outsiders in the school system.
Right,
Which this arena works.
Yeah, I
The
guess I
parking is
understand.
there.
yeah,
Wendy and I are able to see who's coming and going
yeah,
before they get into the polling place.
Huh.
That's quite helpful,
yeah,
as well as it's a town building. So it's available to us whenever a revote needs to happen. 'Cause that needs to happen in the same polling place as the original,
yeah,
without worrying about school being in session.
right. Sounds like the arena, I'm impressed, the arena's had quite the life. I think I even remember when it was built, but sounds like the arena's doing okay, it's still a pretty busy place, huh?
It is very popular.
Yeah.
It is.
Anyway.
And
Okay,
so
back
that
to
one will
town.
work. Yeah, I know we want to stay on
Oh, no,
track.
you're doing great. We got
The
plenty of
next
time.
one is about, so different entities approach towns and ask for a donation.
Right,
Formerly known as Franklin County Home Health is now called VNA and Hospice of Southwest Region.
Right.
They are asking for an appropriation this year, and the select board did ask them to get a petition. So they have an article on town meeting day asking for voter support for their appropriation.
has that come up before? Is that a typical, have they asked for money before?
They have.
They have.
Franklin County Rehab Home Health
Yeah,
has asked for that exact same dollar amount in years past, and they have also been required to do a petition
okay.
because it's over our social service appropriation policy of $1,000.
Yeah, it's interesting. Franklin County Home Health hooking up with folks down in southwestern Vermont. That was kind of interesting that happened.
Absolutely.
Anyway, are there any other issues like that on the ballot, Carrie? Just organizations? No? But I guess I was thinking that some towns I see just a whole list of money requests. Highgate gets those and the select board just doesn't put them on, or you don't get them? Or?
Anything $1,000 or less is in the budget unless it
okay.
needs a petition for a
Okay.
warrant article.
Oh, so a lot of it's just covered by the budget?
It is in the general
Okay.
fund.
Okay.
Each town does it slightly differently. I
Yeah.
mean, St. Albans used to, for I think a first time, ask someone to go on to the ballot. Georgia asked every new person to go on the ballot, and then it would be, once approved
Oh,
by
yeah.
the voters, would be inserted within the budget and considered every year during budget time. I mean, select boards still analyze line by line generally your town budget before they present it to taxpayers.
Right.
So
Interesting.
they evaluate that. Are these services reasonable? Are they providing, your residents services as they had expressed and planned to? Those kind of things.
Interesting.
So in Highgate's pretty
Speaking
good
of
about that.
Georgia has a new town administrator, I believe.
They do.
Interesting. Do you know this person?
I do not.
Don't know.
I've been doing this long enough that a lot of people I started with are now retiring as well. So I'm one of the older ones in the group. It's okay.
It's
Beats the
fine.
alternative, right?
That's fine. Yeah.
So the next one is about the capital improvement plan. So, it's asking for a zero-turn mower. So $30,000, will the voters support $30,000 within the capital improvement plan? It's listed as one of the replacements for indoor turf field house. It's just a line item. That's
Yeah.
what we identified it as,
Okay.
for a 72-inch zero-turn mower. It was planned, as far as I know, right?
It was money allocated to a new turf, indoor turf,
Huh.
that the
right.
Recreation Commission has decided is too far in the future.
Oh, yeah.
They're asking the voters to move that $30,000 to cover the cost of the zero turn instead of asking for an additional $30,000.
Okay.
They would like to use the $30,000 that's already been saved.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Hey, thanks.
Wrong
Great
mower.
explanation.
There you go. That's better. So it's not adding anything to it. It's just
Reallocating.
reallocating the funds.
Okay.
There you go. That's why she's our finance person. Article 8, shall the voters appropriate $590,000 to meet the expenses and liabilities of the capital improvement plan, with an estimated $590,000 to be raised by
Is
taxes.
that a typical figure for that, Shelley or Carrie?
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, have you got some pretty good bucks in the capital improvement plan at this point?
We do, but we also have quite a few large projects on our
Really?
plate, so.
Right.
And we do have a new highway truck that's not been delivered, but
really?
we are expecting it this year,
Oh.
once it's finalized.
Do most towns have a capital improvement plan? Is that pretty typical of most towns,
It
presumably?
is. I mean, it's important, and what it sounds like a really boring term, but what it helps you do is even out your purchases so that you're not trying to buy, $1 million fire truck the same year you need the $300,000 plow truck.
Yeah.
And maybe also something else, like a mower, expensive mower or something.
Right.
So it asks department heads and to work with town administration to kind of even them out, and then also, in some cases, save for them in the future. So you're not asking taxpayers to foot a huge bill one year and then nothing the next, and it evens it all out for people.
For some reason, that's making me think of LOT, local option taxes, which of course St. Albans Town City have approved. The discussion came up in Swanton, and I guess it got a little complicated with the village town. And I guess they're hoping the legislature will make that less complicated. At Highgate, has that ever come up in Highgate? Has anybody talked about an LOT?
Local options tax and impact fees both have come up in discussion during
Yeah.
planning commission meetings.
Huh.
I don't know where they're at in their
Yeah.
planning process, but I know that it has been mentioned, discussed.
Well, it sounds like St. Albans Town, Carrie, I think you'd agree, has done pretty well with that. I mean, it's LOT money's paid for the new town hall, the new public works garage, probably the new fire department headquarters if that happens. But
Correct, right.
Sounds like they've made pretty good use out of that.
Yes,
as I
St.
guess
Albans,
this
I mean, it wasn't
city
without
has
some
too.
debating,
Right.
but that community, each community who has a local option tax
Yeah.
decides how the money's going to be spent.
Yeah, of course, the state loves it. The state grabs, 30% of this?
They do, unless you want to administer it yourself, and most towns don't want that.
Oh, is that right? If you did
oversight.
that, would the state get nothing? Or
I don't know if they would get nothing,
less?
but, correct.
But boy, that's most towns, I assume, just let the state deal with that, I
Right.
guess.
Once you get past that first year,
Yeah.
it's a much easier process.
Yeah.
But the first year, they earned their money quite literally, because they had to figure out, even in St. Albans, where the geographic boundaries were, because we shared a zip code. So
Right.
that was a little challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess that issue's up in at least one Franklin County. I know it's up in Montgomery. I'm not sure about anywhere else, but I think that's up in Montgomery at town meeting.
They changed the law last year,
Huh.
was it last year or
Oh,
the year
yeah.
before? That allowed municipalities to adopt a local option tax with a local vote. You did not need a charter, and you did not need to go
Right.
through the legislature anymore. You
So
don't
now a
have to.
local vote's enough to do it if
Correct.
if
If
it's
it-
approved. Interesting.
Yep.
And for the capital, I'm sorry, you wanted to add?
Well, that might have been some of the hurdles that Highgate
Yeah,
challenges, why Highgate hasn't moved forward with the local options tax yet.
yeah.
Right, because Highgate is small, and there's a lot of people doing a bunch of different things, but there's no need for a charter at this point
Right.
Right.
in Highgate.
Oh, yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
With that capital budget amount, is there anything earmarked if that gets approved? And I think in the past it's been usually approved pretty easily. Is there specific projects? I mean, there's a whole list of projects that you're funding, but with that particular amount, what, 590,000, would that go to particular projects, or is there just a mix of projects that are always being worked on?
Well, just for the viewers here, there's a whole list. Most of the capital improvement
Yeah.
is for vehicle replacement in the
Okay.
highway and the fire department.
Yeah. And for folks to get the town report, obviously a ton of info in the town report itself.
Yeah, it's generally a
Yes.
mix, and Shelley works with all the department heads
Yeah.
and a very active, informed planning commission to work through a capital improvement plan. So,
Yeah.
as taxpayers look forward and go, I don't have a floor vote to ask these questions, they just have to maybe pay attention a little earlier, and
Yeah.
if they want to know what's in that CIP, then, go to a planning commission meeting and just listen, or follow it on Zoom.
Yep, page 52 of our town report this
Yeah.
year is the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And we are saving everything from Zamboni replacement
Wow.
all the way up to paving one of our Class 3 dirt roads.
Interesting.
So-
How much is a new Zamboni, out of curiosity, do you know?
It's a lot.
Around
Is
$250,000.
that right? Boy, I don't know what I would have guessed, probably maybe half of that. Is that right?
Yes.
Quarter mil?
Yes.
They last for a while,
They
but they're
do.
expensive.
Wow.
So, we're saving $15,000, $20,000 a year towards it, so it's
Wow.
not something that will be
Right.
replaced this year.
Interesting.
But this is, again, trying to even out that tax rate
Yeah.
and not ask the voters for $250,000 all
Right.
at once.
Right. Can we move on here?
We sure can. So the next one is basically our budget, appropriate $1,153,171 to meet expenses and liabilities. Oh, that's highway fund, my bad.
That's highway
fund and then general fund. So we ask
The
in
two
Highgate,
biggies,
budget questions are split out between highway fund and general fund.
Okay.
I don't,
Are those figures much, are they up much, Shelley? or-
The biggest expenses in the highway fund are always paving and stone, salt, and pavement.
And I'm sure those prices haven't gone up or anything. There's just crazy inflation for stuff like that.
There's been some serious inflation with all three of those.
Like I'm hearing some of the
So-
towns saying they just can't do the paving they used to do because prices have
correct.
gone up so much.
Right,
you do
we've
fewer
raised our
Wow.
budget, but we're still paving the same 1 mile. So
Is that what you? is
we
that
do
what you-
about a mile and a half a year.
Oh, really?
Whatever we can
Interesting.
do with the money.
How many miles of roads in Highgate? Can you tell me?
30, no.
No, there's a
First
lot.
class.
I thought it was 50 or 55 or something like
Something
that.
like
it's-
that.
It
I
was
think
a,
30-something in the class 2, and
Right.
then,
it's a
Not quite all
lot.
paved. Still some dirt.
Right.
Still some dirt.
It's still some gravel, dirt roads,
dirt
and
roads.
those take a ton of maintenance.
Yeah.
And we have 3 very hardworking public works crew
Wow.
that maintain those roads.
Wow.
And that's why the plow route takes about 4 hours. It takes a little over 4
is that
hours
right?
because there's so many miles of road. You can't you can't plow fast.
Yeah.
Bad things happen, and it doesn't effectively remove snow. So there's a lot of miles of road. Highgate's doing a great job managing that process right
Probably
now.
no plans particularly to pave some more of those dirt roads with the expense, or does that get some attention, or?
We're saving towards it in the capital improvement.
okay.
So there's
Interesting.
the Planning Commission has added a Class 3 road improvement line to our capital improvement plan.
Yeah,
So we can save pavement separately to do a road.
okay.
Because over time, the traffic on some of these roads continues to increase, and you just can't keep up with a gravel road at a certain traffic count. It starts to washboard, you get potholes, and you're spending more money than on a gravel road to maintain it than you would on a
Right.
paved road.
Right.
Not all roads were, and they're not proposing to pave all the roads in
Yeah.
Highgate that are gravel, but there are some key roads that do need.
Highly.
Yeah.
Need some assistance.
What about Vermont Route 78? Talking to the folks in Swanton, I keep hearing that Agency of Transportation State AOT is looking to upgrade or whatever they're going to do with Route 78, especially like West Swanton. Is that all of Route 78? Is that in the plans for Highgate too, or?
I haven't heard anything
I haven't
about
heard
Maybe it's just
78 in
maybe it's
Highgate.
just a Swanton section. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that right
All
now. Nobody from V-Trans is really commenting on that to us.
And then we have the main budget, the general fund. Much, is that figure up much, Shelley?
The
Or Carrie?
general fund actually went down.
Really?
And the biggest piece of the reason for that would be the hydro dam, the Swanton Village Hydro Dam,
Yeah,
which pays a considerable amount of taxes,
yeah.
has been increasing over the years. So
True.
more
So you-
revenue in our general fund to offset the expenditures.
Is that based on how much hydro they're
It's-
producing that's hooked in? I remember when that
It's a
issue came up decades ago.
1974 calculation from a court settlement.
Really?
It's very fun to do.
Interesting.
But it's based off additions to the Highgate Grand List. It's based off the hydro dam, the power they've generated throughout the year, and
Yeah.
then a few more pieces of the calculation to come up with the tax rate, but
Interesting.
yes.
And of course, Swanton Village immersed in trying to get the dam relicensed, and well, what a long process. Sounds like dealing with the feds, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, is much easier than dealing with the state folks, according to the good folks in Swanton Village. But boy, talk about a very expensive ongoing process. But anyway,
Yeah, it does sound like it.
But I guess Swanton does pretty well with their hydro at 70 to 80%. And there's a few Swanton Village electric customers in Highgate.
Yes.
Or maybe more than a few.
I think it's more than a
More
few.
than a few.
In fact, I remember when it came up at town meeting a year or two ago when someone said, "Hey, can I switch over to Swanton Village Electric from what, Vermont Electric Co-op?" And the answer eventually was, "No, sorry, you can't do that."
Interesting.
I guess maybe we're down to the ambulance.
We sure are, yeah. I've
Just
read
what
those
you-
articles, yeah, absolutely.
So again, this was came up 3 years ago. I remember the town meeting, and when this got again, it came down to Highgate was being served by Missisquoi Valley Rescue at that point,
Correct.
and Amcare had made a bid or wanted the service, and there was some pretty serious discussion about that.
Yes.
With Missisquoi Valley still retaining that, or
Currently, and we call them MVR,
MVR?
they are the service provider for Highgate.
And so Amcare's never been into Highgate at this point, right? It's
Yes,
always-
they have.
They have in the
So did they have
past.
it like a year or two at some?
No, they did a 3-year.
Okay.
The select board had voted.
Okay,
The first time, the select board had voted Amcare.
okay.
They awarded Amcare the contract for 3 years. MVR got the next vote. That went to public floor vote
Yeah.
at our town meeting,
Yeah.
3 years. Same thing, MVR got the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And now we're back to,
So here we are.
Here we
So
are.
that 3-year contract expires like what, June 30 or something, or sometime?
it does, June 30th. So
Interesting.
depending which way the voters decide,
Huh.
will sway the select board's decision.
And again, this is billed as a non-binding?
Non-
It is, yeah,
non-binding.
So
because
it's a
it's
select board decision?
correct, yeah, the state law, for intentional purposes,
Okay.
allows issues that relate to public safety to be those decisions can be made by either a town manager and or a select board,
Interesting.
depending on your government entity.
And the money
So
figures are virtually the same.
they are very similar.
For-
We
for
went out to bid,
Interesting.
and I don't know how this happened, but it was a little interesting that they were with less than $400 difference
That's almost unbelievable.
over 3 years,
Really?
which is interesting.
Huh.
So both we're expecting both to come and give a short presentation and answer questions at the informational
Yeah.
meeting. I hope people make an informed decision. I mean, I know when you're talking about ambulance services and other things,
Wow.
it can become emotional, but,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know how this is gonna go.
Interesting. Are the services, again, the dollar amounts are virtually the same.
Mm-hmm.
Are they also, is this with the same service? Is it clear? I mean, is it similar what folks would get out of MVR and AmCare? Is that clear from their,
I mean, both say they can serve the people of Highgate.
Yeah.
I mean, on its face, I think one institution is larger than the other.
yeah,
So I don't know. I mean,
interesting.
they both met largely the parameters of our RFP.
Yeah,
I think,
I think a vote is going to be personal preference, personal experience.
yeah,
It's going to be very personal on this
right. On that-
ballot.
Yeah, on that
This
question.
topic, because the dollars, as we discussed, are apples to apples almost.
yeah.
It's true.
Well, it's interesting. I guess, I mean, you could have people voting yes for both questions. It's going to be interesting.
Yes.
Is it interesting how they worded it? I guess I might have thought it might have been one article.
That's the way
It
it
was
was worded.
debated.
Yeah, that was debated.
It was worded that exact same way,
Yeah.
our last vote.
Yeah,
And it's purposely, as you're noting, a different piece of paper with a purple or a light pastel color at the top, to alert people that this is a different question,
yeah.
and it's its own ballot, literally own piece of paper.
So whoever gets it, this would be another 3-year contract?
Yes.
Yes, that's the
Interesting.
intent.
So we've covered is that it for, we've covered all the articles?
We have,
Right.
that's
That's
enough.
right.
That kept us pretty busy.
Well, we have some more stuff to talk about.
We do.
But great job on that. And again, voting Tuesday, March 4th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Highgate Sports Arena. And I love the snack bar. Will the snack bar, I hope, be open perhaps, or
They are not open
they're not
on
open? Oh,
voting
really?
day.
Interesting. But I'm impressed. Sports Arena still gets what, MVU and Milton to.
It is Milton's home ice as well as MVU,
Interesting.
yes.
Boy, a sad thing. I used to deal with Milton with a part-time job. Just so they finally got the new, hockey arena going down there. I'm going back, maybe 10 years or something, 5 to 10.
Yeah. I can't
Anyway,
remember.
and it just faded so quickly. Just boy, Milton, unreal. Top 10 town population-wise, unreal. Just a busy place.
It is.
Boy,
It
it took
is.
a couple of terrible hits. I got to know Don Turner a bit. Great guy,
Yes.
and of course John Cushing, who I just dealt with a few times. But boy, deaths of two incredibly long-time public servants within like a month or two
I
last
know.
year, I guess.
Right. That's
Yeah,
tough.
a couple great guys.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot going on. I wanted to touch on a few of the other things going on in Highgate. We touched on a bit village core issues with library, community center, but how is that? Is that moving along? The key being, and there have been some votes on that. You've gotten a lot of outside funding, but the key being the wastewater facility. Carrie, is that moving along pretty well?
It is moving along. Wastewater projects, water and wastewater projects take a good deal of planning.
I bet.
And so the town has, it's almost a $6.5 million project.
Wow.
A good deal of it funded through state ARPA. And we're pushing forward on that. We have just recently reached out to people within the village in the service area to find out if they're interested in hooking up to this service when it's available.
Yeah.
So we did send out a letter to about 75 people last week.
Huh.
So we're doing that, pushing forward, but it's slow and steady on that front. What people probably noticed also is we're doing a different project, the airport water and sewer extension from Swanton. That's actively in construction right now.
Another big project. So that guy, I know that was delayed, but that is that is.
Yeah, they started.
Did they take a winter break on that? Or?
Yeah, most most construction companies
much
will take
need
a short pause for winter.
Yeah.
They were able to continue construction through the beginning of January, though.
Wow, really?
So it was pretty amazing.
Wow. And that'll be completed certainly sometime
This year. Yeah, it's expected. That's $3.5 million. There was some different funding sources for that too. The Northern Borders people helped, V-Trans helped, the state helped with like $1 million. EDA was in there as well. So there's a good deal of grant funding that's supporting that extension to the airport.
And this is an extension from MVU to the airport, is that where, or
Well, just
longer?
wherever, I don't know where their
Wherever.
lines stop up,
Yes.
the Swanton line.
Yep.
So that'll be completed. Boy, the airport project, it sounds like down the road. I mean, certainly a lot of the folks think some great potential for this.
We hope so.
So once those water sewer lines are extended, what happens next with the airport project, Shelley or Carrie, or is that not clear there?
We don't know exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of interest, but I don't know that anybody's signed a contract yet.
Yeah.
But the state certainly is proceeding. I mean, the runway was expanded.
Yeah, there's been work at the airport itself, of course.
Right. So, and obviously, having water and sewer, the people that own the hangars have expressed some interest as well. So
Yeah.
it's good.
And Jim Harrison is looking to have a kind of small industrial park, or was that not the term?
I don't
or-
think there's been any commitment
Is that
or.
right? So is that not even, that's not nailed down?
Right. Correct.
No,
That's why I
nothing.
was purposely vague.
No, is that right?
And
Interesting.
there's been some people that came in and talked to the zoning administrator, but nothing is permanent. No applications
Yeah.
into the DRB that I'm aware of
No.
yet.
Shelley, you see some good potential for that? Is that something down the road that you think might be pretty good?
That's what they were
Hoping for
projecting
anyway.
when we started this project. So I do hope that it is an economic boost to our local community.
It's certainly down the road. We're talking obviously
Correct.
a number of years here, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes me think of Franklin County Field Days. Have you got any news on field days? Again, they've got, the last year or two, they've managed to get an extension for one more year. And I was hearing
Yes.
that, boy, it didn't look, like very likely at all for another year. Have you got
It's
a
true.
better
I don't
handle on
have an
that?
official word. I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I've heard that it likely field days won't happen this year, but it's located in Highgate, but Highgate has no direct affiliation with field days, so
Yeah,
we
right.
don't know. That's a problem.
And I know they've been, in fact, I know they looked at at least one site in Highgate.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the neighbors weren't too happy about that. It sounds like that doesn't sound like that has
It
much
was
potential.
very close to the sports arena, so
Right.
center of town.
Yeah,
And yes, there was, I think, more
Objection.
cons than pros
Yeah.
Yeah.
with that location.
yeah. Anyway, that makes me think of another issue. Interstate 89, there used to be, of course, the Welcome Center as soon as you cross
Mm-hmm.
the border into Vermont, and that got torn down, and now Tim Smith,
Mm-hmm.
St. Albans Mayor, Franklin County Industrial Development Corp. I know Tim's been giving this issue attention. You hearing anything about that? Any progress on that?
I did hear last year that it was continuing to move forward. I think it's in the planning stages, but I haven't heard anything for a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, the border crossing is getting an upgrade. We have
Right,
been
big
notified
upgrade.
of that.
Yeah.
They promised to have it open while it's being reconstructed, I guess. Every
Yeah.
building there needs to be replaced at one point, so
Really?
you're gonna slowly
Wow.
see some changes there. I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like, but they bought some land so they could expand because they said it wasn't working for the people there's, I guess, 3 different federal agencies that use the buildings at the border crossing. And they're gonna tear down every building overall.
Wow, that sounds
So-
like, obviously a pretty
Yeah.
big project.
I guess I would like to just give a little
Yeah.
commercial while we have a few minutes left
Sure.
that the town of Highgate has a transfer station. We had some damage from Irene in 2013. Well, the slide happened in
In fact,
13.
Yes.
that was on my list.
And we closed that project out in November
Huh.
of 2024. And Highgate got the award or the designation of being the last Irene item in the state to
Oh,
be
is that right?
closed out. So Shelley and I are working on that this week to officially send in the final paperwork and hopefully get it accepted. So
Boy, I mean, that's
It was
been a big issue.
finished.
Aren't we talking in this project in the millions of
it
dollars
was
to?
almost 3, I
Yes.
think.
Wow.
And I mean, to look at it now, it's a little underwhelming, but you don't appreciate how many feet
Wow.
of stone and support have been put back on those banks to stabilize them.
And again, this is in particular by the transfer station,
is.
just on the, obviously, Missisquoi River side of it. Are there other places though along there that have had issues too with landslides?
The Macy Road
Macy Road, right.
has an active slide right now.
In fact, even and the concern there is the Macy Road may be
Macy Road.
may be in trouble, correct, for the
Right,
whole
right.
run.
There's a grant for that too.
Wow.
We're actually, we need to work on that, honestly. We're trying to close out one before.
Right. So
putting our
the work
attention
is almost mostly done on the transfer station?
It's all
part?
done. The
It's all
work
done.
itself was done this fall.
Yeah.
And now we're doing the financial wrapping up, basically, of formally saying to the state and Vermont Emergency Management that we're done. This is what we spent.
Ah,
Final bill.
Wow,
Final.
wow. And
yeah, so
the
that-
transfer station itself, what's the story with that? This is, of course, Casella's
Mm-hmm.
transfer station. Anyway, is that, do they have a certain time, a contract with the town that needs to get extended? What's the story with that?
They do,
Carrie?
they do. That's a great
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
So right now, we're actively negotiating with Casella. They lease the land from the town. The town also has their sand and salt shed down
yeah.
the transfer station area as
Of
well.
course, it's the old town dump, the old town
Yes.
landfill, of course, that
Yes.
I remember too.
So they had a contract. It was an older contract, so they're negotiating a longer-term contract with them right now.
Interesting. I mean, any reason to think anybody else would bid on that contract?
No,
No.
I mean, the town.
haven't heard
The
anyone.
town owns the land, obviously.
Correct.
Right. And
Yep.
boy, Casella seems to be of course, their big landfill in
Yes.
Coventry, of course. Interesting.
That's what we've been doing.
Highgate, a border town. Boy, you certainly hear a lot more about the northern border these days. Swanton Sector Border Patrol, just incredibly busy with apprehensions. Get any story? I mean, do you hear stories from folks who are on the border in Highgate about just people wandering across their
My
property?
family is right on the border.
Is that right? Have you
They
had
see
any issues?
Many walkers.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. And much more than in the old day? I mean, much more
Yes.
recently.
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Border Patrol hopefully quickly responds when they hear about this and stuff, I guess is,
I see Border Patrol in Highgate
Yeah.
more than any other
really
Law
service.
enforcement, Yeah.
interesting.
So I think they are doing as good of a job as they can.
Yeah, well, that
Hard to
makes me
keep
think
up.
of course, police coverage these days from Franklin County Sheriff's Department. You happy with the coverage you're getting from the Sheriff's Department? How are they doing?
They seem to be filling the shifts that they promise.
Yeah,
Yep. They send a schedule. It's, loosely done and changes often so that we can cover as much as possible.
yeah. How much time do you get from the Sheriff's Department?
5 shifts a week, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So I want to say 40 hours, but I don't remember. Could be a
Yes,
little.
40 hours a week.
Yeah.
About 40 hours a week? And you talk about extending that, obviously it would be that much more money, but.
That was extended from 26 hours a
really?
week that we had contracted
Is
with
that right? So
St.
up to
Albans
40.
City,
Yeah,
and they had a hard time filling it. So
Yeah.
we're getting more patrol hours in town than
Yeah.
we've ever gotten.
yeah, it sounds like, you're the Highgate person, Shelley and Carrie now, but it sounds like St. Albans PD got off to a good start with Highgate and things kind of faded towards the end, maybe staffing issues or whatever. Anyway.
Hard to say what the
Yeah.
issues were, but
Yeah.
yes.
But you seem to be doing okay with the Sheriff's
Yes.
Department.
Yep, easy to work with.
Yeah. Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, of course,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was hoping, of course, we were going to have the big, start of that with the governor a couple of years ago when the flooding knocked that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping they'd reschedule that. I'm not sure they ever did that, but much traffic on LVRT, which of course goes
Very
right through the
popular.
village.
Very
Very popular.
Yeah.
The town has got a grant to put up a little pavilion.
Oh, great.
Near the school,
It's
kind of.
going to be on the arena side
Right,
okay,
of
on
the
that
rail
side.
trail.
Of course, it goes right between the arena and the school.
Correct.
So that's a project the rec committee's been working on for a few years.
Yeah.
And that's also another project. We've got quite a few things going on.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing any businesses like snack bars? Sounds like it might be a great time for a business to try to exploit LVRT. Hearing anything about anybody like that now?
Haven't heard any yet. We love it though.
Yeah.
I love with the advent of food trucks being able to kind of pop
Right.
up in places. Maybe we'll
Yes.
get somebody like that. There's a lot of traffic on that rail trail
Yeah.
in the winter and the summer.
Yeah. Interesting. No, it sounds like the LVRT. I know Northern Vermont with Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail and Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, a couple of pretty nice resources here.
Right.
The converter station in Highgate, is that getting more, is that what, Velco's converter station, is that?
Yeah, I
Is
don't-
there doing some more work on that, or?
I do not recall the scope of their project, but
Oh, yeah.
yes, they have been under construction for the majority of the year, if not
Interesting.
longer.
I mean, another break, I mean, Highgate certainly gets some decent tax money out of that place, do you
Velco?
not?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Down to
It's
about
true.
Down to about 2 minutes. Anything, and again, I probably haven't even covered everything I wanted to, but Shelley, anything you want to throw out for a minute or so that we haven't touched
I
on?
can't think of anything other than 6 PM at the Highgate Elementary School gym
Yeah, for
tomorrow, Thursday, the
night,
27th,
the
for
27th.
informational meeting.
But the town, you're pretty comfortable. You think the town's in pretty decent shape financially?
I do.
Yeah.
We are.
Carrie, what's especially struck you in your, how long is interim town administrator now?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, extensive 3 months.
Just as an outside observer, I'm just struck there's a lot going on.
There is a ton of stuff going on.
Wow.
There's, as someone said locally, they're punching above their weight. They have,
I
these
hear ya.
2 or 3 really large infrastructure projects that are not, it's abnormal, but in a good way. So yeah, between the airport extension and the village wastewater project with
Yeah.
Cathedral Square, and a few other projects, it's amazing what Highgate is doing, given their small staff. They have a very engaged group of boards, the Planning Commission, the DRB, the Rec Committee, and the library trustees are doing a lot of work for the
Right.
municipality.
Very quickly, I was hearing at one point, going back months now, that for the wastewater facility to move ahead, the village core issue to move ahead, it might take another vote, a public vote and stuff. Is that not the case?
Well, it
Not
depends on
clear.
if some of the funding falls through. Both of these, that project relies on congressionally directed spending or old earmarks, and earmarks are on pause right now at the federal level. So there might be a request of taxpayers to support that project with a bond if those entirely are removed from the funding staff.
Anyway, so we'll see what happens.
Correct.
But Cathedral Square, do you feel that's gotten a pretty positive response? They certainly have a very good reputation.
It's gotten a great response. It's
Yeah.
it's housing that's sorely needed, but it relies on the wastewater project as well.
Right. Interesting. A lot going on in Highgate. Again, hey, many thanks to interim town administrator Carrie Johnson and town treasurer Shelley Laroche. Thanks for
you.
your time.
Thank you.
And again, town meeting coming up in Highgate, Australian ballot voting, but a lot of issues to be dealt with. Thanks to my producer Josh Pryor. Thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. See you next time.